Welcome to Peaking to Success, the podcast that delves deep into our guest success stories, the highs, the lows, the lessons learned, and if there's any exciting future plans lined up. Talking about future plans, Peaking into Success is proudly supported by Peak Wills and Estate Planning. We're here to support you with any future planning. Long gone are the times of solicitors in suits and ties and dark rooms and outdated practices. We are proud to offer a fresh and dynamic approach to the stuffy old world of wills, changing the way we talk about what happens when we die. But that's enough talk about death on a podcast introduction. It's time to pass you over to Peaking into Success host, Mr. Adam Kahn. Whose success are we peeking into this episode, Adam?
Thanks, Sam, and what a great introduction. Today we have on Jimmy Fairhurst, is a man that has run his own theatre company, as well as starring in a past and upcoming show at Derby Theatre in Brastoff, so I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hi Jimmy, how are we today?
Good, all right, yeah. It's ready to enter tech rehearsals for.
And do you feel prepared, or
Yeah,
do you feel
good.
nervous ever?
No, I don't really get. I don't really get nervous. I get excited. I get a little bit of nerves, but I get really excited, particularly when we're just about to go up. It's the same anticipation and excitement I used to get before playing a rugby match.
Nice.
Yeah.
For anyone, of course, that doesn't know you in the local area or further afield, how would you sum up Jimmy Fairhurst in a nutshell?
That is a question. How would I sum up Jimmy Fairhurst in a nutshell? I think my brother once referred to me as never finishes a pint. Oh, no, never finishes a sentence, always finishes a pint. I don't know. I'm a working class actor, writer, director, and the artistic director of Not Too Tame. And yeah, I'm here to have a good time, not a long time. Pretty much.
Nice way of putting it, short and sweet. So, of course, you touched on a moment ago, of course, the rugby. How did you go from, of course, rugby to acting? Kind of, how did that gap get filled and the transition happen?
Well, it's funny. Really. I always say that I did a Billy Elliot because I was playing rugby league. My dad was a professional rugby league player for Wigan and Warrington, and then and so I sort of followed that route. I mean, from the age of 6, I was playing rugby league, which if you're from Warrington, is sort of the norm. It's bigger than football down that neck of the woods. And I was at high school. I was playing rugby. That's where I was destined to go. I was playing. Just been finished at Bradford Bulls, and I was at Lee Centurions. And I was in an English class and then we were doing Shakespeare from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and as you do in school, we've been talking about it and reading it out, and I found myself laughing and other people weren't, and I thought, oh, have I got that wrong? And I remember the English teacher, Mr. Harrington, said, you might want to do a play, and I was like, be normal. Who does plays? I didn't know anyone who did theatre at all. And then he introduced me to a lady called Carol Shinkfield, who was the head of drama. Yeah. She was like, yeah, we're doing Midsummer Night's Dream. Would you like to audition? I'm like, not quite sure. And then it was full of girls, and I was like, yeah, I'll give that a go. So that was the first thing I did. I did Midsummer Night's Dream, and but as soon as I did it, everything shifted, everything changed, and I went, this is what I want to do. And I remember telling my dad, and he hit the roof. He hit the absolute roof, because I just changed course in about of what I wanted to do in a couple of weeks. I remember him I was stood down the corridor, and I remember him not had up against the wall, but he was very firm about don't be filling this lad's head, because he had no reference of he didn't know anyone in theatre or that could do it. And I just remember the drama teacher saying, he can do this, he's talented. I just thought, oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Maybe I can. And I thought, yeah. And so I've been blagging my way through it ever since.
So, of course, did you initially start with the acting, or did you see, of course, you've got Not Too Tame and you're artistic director of that, so did you see that as natural progression into that role, or was it kind of, I just want to do acting and focus on the acting, not behind the scenes?
Well, it was so the first thing I did, because by the time I was 17, I already had a place at Cardiff University to read English. So I went to Cardiff University and basically peed it up the wall for 3 years and got a lot of life experience and a lot of debt. But while I was there, yes, I did English, but it was modular, so I did I became obsessed with theatre and English and stories, and like just words have always been a massive passion of mine. So I did writing for stage. I did Shakespeare's trilogy, comedies. But I did all Shakespeare stuff, all London stage, all like lots of stuff that was just based around performance or narrative and stories, and I loved it. And I worked hard and played hard, probably played a lot harder than I did. But while I was doing that, I always knew that this was just a stopgap. I was going to go and train to be an actor. So I worked 2 jobs, because while I was at university, to make sure that I had the money to come out. And one of my friends, who was in Brookside, actually, as a kid, he was a child actor, Ollie Simpson. If people know Brookside, it's the brother and sister who got it on, first sort of like taboo relationship. He was the younger brother who did CVs for Jimmy Corkill. And anyway, but he said, if you can, don't do the 1-year MA, do the 3-year, because you meet more, you'll make more relationships with directors and professionals, and that will help you when you get into the industry. And it was one of the greatest bit of advice I've ever had. But then, I was fortunate enough to get into several drama schools, but I got cut into a couple at London, and then I got into Royal Welsh, and I didn't know where to go. But I was walking through the park in Cardiff. If anyone knows Cardiff, it's in the grounds of a castle. It's beautiful, and I was deliberating where to go, and then an orchestra started up playing Quadrophenia by The Who, and I went, yeah, this is where I'm going to stay. And I went to Cardiff University, and I did 3 years there. And in my second year, I was in the library looking for showcase pieces for monologues, which is what all actors do. And I just noted that there was no... I was like, Jim Cartwright's great. I know he's brilliant. He's one of the best, prolific Northern writers, and he was someone who made me realise I could do this. But he wrote 2 in 1984, and that's the year I was born. And I was like, where's the rest of these working class voices? Where's, Jimmy McGovern? Where's Shane Meadows for stage? I couldn't believe how little there was. And that's when I went, I want a voice at the table. I'm going to start my own company, and I'm going to make working class work for working class people, and for my mates who are rugby players, hairdressers and teachers and sparks. And so I started along with about 8 or 10 other working class actors who went to Royal Welsh, either a year above me or a year below. And when we left and went to London, I started Not Too Tame, and that's so Not Too Tame is my company, and we make work for people who don't want to go to theatre, really.
Yeah.
And theatre can be a good night out. So that's how I sort of got into Not Too Tame, and that is 10 years ago next year.
Jeez.
I know, it's interesting actually. I'm like, what? That seems so that's how I sort of got into that.
So of course I've seen your Cinderella.
Oh yeah.
In a pub when you did it in Derby. I think is that 5 years ago that you did that?
Yeah, I think it might be now.
And the difference is, I've seen you on Derby Theatre stage as well. So the difference from the work you create to the work you perform in, how does that come about? So,
well, that's really interesting actually, because the work that I create is work that I would like to see actually, because I sort of go. I always think that, like a good night out in any boozer, because Not Too Tame performs predominantly, it now performs in mid-scale theatres as well as site-specific, but it's taking the nature of a space. So if I'm not in theatre, I like going to gigs, and I'm like, it should be, it's classless. Anyone can go to any, you can listen to Tchaikovsky and you can listen to Eminem, no one's going to bat an eyelid. Theatre's not like that, and so many people are, like all my mates, they won't go to theatre, but they'll go to a show. Do you know what I mean?
Okay,
and they'll because they think it's not for them, because they've been told either by content or ticket price or the building but so for me, we took the mountain to Mohammed, and making work in places where people feel comfortable, and I can drink while I do those shows. All joking about, so and that's fun, and then but it's interesting because the same. We'll go on to this, but I'm doing obviously in Derby doing Breast Off, but the different hearts and tropes within the work, the resilience of the human spirit, working class stories, you've got to laugh or you'll cry. There's a lot of human pathos in working in those stories, and a lot in any Not Too Tame show. You'll have a laugh, you'll have a pint or a drink if you like to drink, you'll have fun, and hopefully somewhere along the lines, like, you'll be moved and you'll be made to think about stuff. Even with, you know, something with Cinderella, there's stories and characters that hopefully you identify with, and I think by the end as well, like it breaks down the barrier of us and them.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go out. You're not sat in the dark in a Not Too Tame show. You're the final cast member.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, but then the difference, the work that I do with companies. I mean, I've done, how many shows have I done here now in Derby? I did Kes, was the first thing I did here. Then I did Brastoff, then Look Back in Anger, and then I'm back doing Brastoff again. And they're all great working class stories, actually. Maybe that's my thing, obviously. But I love doing it. It's quite nice sometimes. I was saying it was really lovely to be asked back to do this with Sarah Brigham, who I'd walk over hot coals for her, because she really is, you know, like Ron Seal. She does what she says on the tin and she means it. So, and that's evident in such a monster of a show. But she leads by example. And so it's quite nice sometimes just being one thing, because as an artistic director, and normally I'm in the shows, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, but like I'm producer, I'm actor, I'm director, I'm writer. Whereas then when you come in to do an actor role for a director who is as great as Sarah, it's actually really fun and freeing, and you can just focus on that one strand. So it's quite liberating, actually.
Nice. No, I like that, and I mean, you're very, with the working class, I feel like I've noticed, especially with like the community stuff Derby Theatre have been doing recently, that a lot more people are in that mind frame of, I can't come to a theatre because of X, Y and Z. So you actually like going in to the community and giving them kind of another place to watch performances. If you think of Derby,
yeah,
where really, apart from here and the Velodrome on the odd occasion, can you actually watch a piece of theatre or a show?
Yeah, but it's I mean, Derby's it's a really interesting city, actually, but it's really rich in community, like micro hubs, and you know, social clubs and pubs, and it's brilliant. It's got loads of ale houses I love, but I think, and I always call it like a bit like Hansel and Gretel. Like we've got, for me as Not Too Tame, I'm like, and theatre, or people who make working class artists in theatre need to be the antidote, because people are already, you're not meeting them at neutral, they're meeting it going, oh, I don't like that, because they've been like a bit like Shakespeare at school. Sometimes people they've been made to feel stupid, or made to feel like that isn't for them. So you've got to work a little bit harder, because they're already going, nah, not for me. Like, it's ingrained in them. So to go and show them work, or not show them, because it's not, to go and present something to them, and then they go, oh, actually I enjoyed that, then there's the responsibility of either you as the company or the theatre to go, what's the next show? And you've got to, you know, I do call it Hansel and Gretel, that you've got to give them morsels to lead them out and build up trust with those audiences. Because for me, I mean, Derby's a big football type city, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm the worst footballer you'll ever meet, but I was in the gym the other day, and I heard two blokes who didn't know each other, and they were talking about Derby football and a Derby, and they were like, right, well, who are we playing at the weekend? I was like, who are we playing? Like, they were on the bench. Do you know what I mean? It belongs to them, and I think the biggest success a theatre or a company could have was going like, oh, what are we doing next? Or they're part of that, and that, I think that's a big working class thing, because sport, particularly football, you know, it's, anyone can access it. You go, playing, kicking about in the streets. It's like, it literally is for anyone. And I think that's a big. I think theatre could learn a lot. And recently I've been obsessed with football managers, and what football managers say, and man management of their teams and directors, I think are really similar.
Okay.
Yeah, like Arsene Wenger. I'll give you one, because I love this quote by Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger said, "My job is not to make the players brilliant. My job is to make them so relaxed that their genius shines through." Well, if that isn't a director, I don't know what is.
It is, yeah. No, I like the comparison, and I mean, until you saying it, you don't notice it. You don't notice these things, and it's kind of, sometimes with theatre, you need to kind of bring it, I guess, to ground level, so you can observe more, and that's what you're shining through. You're showing, I'm noticing the smaller things, I'm noticing the smaller communities and the people that just maybe go to work 9 to 5 and go and do this and that, and you're giving them that kind of opportunity to see through a different kind of, I don't know, aspect of kind of entertainment.
Well, the thing is as well, is like how often are those people's stories, it's only until, so those working class stories, and okay, you can look at them in soaps, but actually I always talk about this magic in the mundane. It's like the everyday is beautiful. Like that, how, you know, as human beings we're drawn to stories that are based on a true story, and I'm telling you now, the people that I've met on a creative pub crawl, basically I've gone around the pubs in as part of something to do with Derby Can, asking people what would they like to see, and you know, buy them a pint and go, do you mind if I sit with you and ask you what you want? And the stories that people have told me, either before a show or like after a show over a pint, when they go, can I buy you a drink? I'm like, yeah, of course you can, I'm an actor, buy me what you want me. But the story, I'm like, they're moving, they're emotional, they're like, I can't believe this. We can put this in, but so this is true. So when I was writing Cinderella, the character that I played, oh no, Jack, someone else played it first. There was a guy who I was writing the script in a pub, or working on the script in a pub in I think up in Belper, and it was in the middle of the suburbs, but everyday no pub. The next minute, a guy in I'd say late 50s, early 60s walks in full women's clothing and wig and high heels.
Okay.
Everyone in the pub turns around. And I was like, wow, okay. And I'm like, I was just writing about a guy, not, you know, it wasn't about sexual preference. It was about, it was a guy who just feels comfortable wearing women's clothes as part of this, the fairy godmother in Cinderella. And I went up to this lady and said, could you mind if I buy you a drink? In hindsight, that might not have been the best idea. But anyway, this she referred to herself as Cheryl, but later on he told me his name was, I'll not say his name, but basically he said, I was telling him what I was doing, and he I'll not go into the story, but what was really interesting is that he'd basically lost his wife, and he was on his own, and he'd come into that same pub all the time as a brickie, and no one looked at him, he was invisible. And then for one reason or another, he started getting into these communities, and he realised that this gave him something. And he said when he came into the pub, everyone turned their head, and I thought there was something really beautiful in that, and sad, and anyway, but that was part of it. But these, you know, these everyday stories exist in working class communities, and really, unless it comes up on a soap or in a Jimmy McGovern or a Shane Meadows, there's no light on those communities. And I think that's a massive, forgive the pun while we're doing brass stuff, but a massive seam on a coal face that is missing, which is about working class stories and working class everyday life. Because it's, you know, you can have the royals and this, that, and the other, but I'm not bothered about them.
No.
I'm bothered about the person who's, you know, making ends meet and having to go to, is working 3 jobs and having to go to food banks to, like that. That's just, they're heroes. They're those people who should be celebrated and a light shone upon them in their difficulties, because they're doing that every day, day in, day out, and surviving. And I think that's massive.
100%. And I mean, as you said, no one's shining a light on them, but you are now. And hopefully, if not too, Tame can get to a degree where it can go everywhere and anywhere and kind of have all them functioning cogs in a bigger scale, then all the people are going to see it.
Do you know what? It's interesting and going on. So one of your questions that you brought up, I hope you don't mind if I.
Oh no, that's fine.
Because it leads on to this. Because one of the, I don't know what happened in the last 6 months, but one of your questions that you emailed to me was, what advice would I give a young Jimmy Fairhurst?
Yes.
And just literally turned 39 this week, and I would say, stop waiting for permission.
Okay.
And I say this to all working class. So when I work with young actors, you don't call yourself an actor, call yourself an artist, because then you're a collaborator. As an actor, sometimes you're passive. But I've always been going, like, waiting for permission to, like, oh, is that okay to do? Is that, like, don't, just do it. You've got to do it. And I still now at 39, like, I'm in rooms, and Sarah Brigham's been incredibly helpful in this, in putting me in on interview boards and this, that, and the other. And you realise that you have a rightful place in there, but if you're from a certain working class background, you don't want to you don't want to annoy anyone, you don't want to upset anyone. And actually, what I've realised is about 6 months ago, I thought, F this, like I'm not taking any prisoners. We're doing this, and we're going to change it, because it's not about me. It's about those audiences, and it's about those young artists who, could be the next Victoria Wood, the next Shane Meadows. It's about being path makers and not gatekeepers. And I've realised that there are so many people who don't want to make a positive change. And I just thought, why am I waiting for permission here? Nah, this is happening, and I don't know where it's come from. It's not. I would hope that it's not seen as an arrogance to just go, I'm here to make a mark and open doors for people, because there is so much talent that doesn't, that have got barriers to access into these opportunities, and it's there. They've got skills and storytelling abilities that we couldn't dream of. So I'm just think like it just feels like we need to shake up the snow globe of theatre and just make it accessible. Otherwise, it will die.
100%. And I mean, you've mentioned theatre specifically there, but I've noticed, of course, since doing this, that a lot of people, you said the word gatekeeping.
Join me, Daisy Ray, on the Talk Poetry to Me podcast, where we dive into the hearts and minds of poets and spoken word artists, unveiling emotions, sharing stories, and embracing the power of words. Tune in to discover the voices that paint our world with truth. Talk Poetry to Me. You can listen wherever you download your podcasts.
Will gatekeep people, especially, it's really bad to say, but especially people that deem themselves a higher class, especially in Derby. I mean, that have stopped me getting into certain conversations or into certain rooms with people to try and sell this as an entity. So you saying that you getting onto boards and kind of trying to break that for the theatre world, I completely resonate with, because I've, in this short time, I've had exactly the same.
That's interesting.
And a lot, there was an episode with a football manager who people, if you typed him in on Google, comes up with he's racist, blah 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 blah. But I did the episode being like, we're not mentioning that, we're focusing on the football career. Yeah. It's in the top 3 episodes already. So if you don't focus on the headline and people don't search him and people just listen, and you cut out the negative of people, I've noticed, people do want to listen, but they just see negative connotations and run a mile. So
but that's the art of it. I mean, we live in an age where nuanced conversation or debate has gone, and people just want headlines. So that's interesting that you go if it comes at it from a different position. And I think there's, we're all of us as humans, but there's no black and white. We're all grayscale, and everyone is. I just think it's important to look at the detail, isn't it? And it's important to. I think that's, if you care about what you're doing, it becomes ingrained in the act itself. Like the interviewer going, okay, well that is one thing, but if everyone is doing that, if you copy and go down that same route, then you're going to get everyone else's results. But I think and path makers is a big thing. I've banged on about Sarah Brigham, but if it wasn't for, mentors are a huge thing actually, and I now try to be a mentor to other people. And funny enough, Sarah's been my mentor, and on the front of the doors downstairs there's a new company who's performing here called Close to Home Productions, who I've mentored, and it is about sending the elevator back down, and something that I did. You're saying about those barriers that you come to. It's only by seeing behind the curtain do you realise. So Sarah and other mentors bring me into scenarios that I might not other be, or being an artistic director, I'm in rooms from a different angle. Yeah. And then you realise, and this is, I found this out a lot in COVID, and it really broke my heart. Some people are just doing it because they're just doing a job. What's the next thing? Whereas I go, and I realise, I'm like, hang on a minute, I used to not look up to you, but I used to feel subservient to you, and go, and actually, you guys are conning a living. What? I can do this. So I think there's that thing of going, we put parameters, we put glass ceilings on ourselves because we think we doubt, again, if you're from a certain background, I think we doubt ourselves, and we go, and everyone gets this, no matter what class you're from, but the imposter syndrome. But I do think it's amplified because you don't, if you're from a working class background, you don't have that entitlement. You don't feel entitled to have the voice, to take the space, to. Whereas if you were told from an early age you can have what you want, you can do what you want, you can be what you want, then you are entitled to take everything. Space, time, it already belongs to you. And what I'm trying to instill in young working class actors and artists and anyone I meet is going, take whatever you need to do your job properly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's because that's your responsibility. You have a responsibility to yourself and to the work. And in a way, I believe that if you make it about the work, you get out of your own way. But that's one of the only thing, my biggest handbrake to making work or to any project in the arts is ego. Like it is, because I'm not here to babysit. Get a grip and get out. I can't deal with it. But you'll notice that, and like you need a certain amount of confidence. It's confidence without arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes from doing a job properly and taking pride in your job. Whether you're a road sweeper, an actor, like people say. I remember someone said this to me once. They said, "Do you think it's arrogant to be an actor if you're working class?" It's like, what planet are you on? And they said, well, it's quite a middle class job. And I said, well, that's interesting because I think it's a trade in the same way that a joiner or an electrician, you're applying your trade. And I've learnt my trade. My trade is storytelling.
Yeah.
So when I go to work as a working class artist. Like I'm just like any joiner or any brickie. I'm building something from scratch, and I'm doing it with the trades and the skills that I've learnt. Can you tell that annoyed me, that question?
It did annoy
What you know?
No, I like that. I mean, you went on to the advice, so I'm going to ask you this now. Is there anything you do differently? So if we went back to maybe that Billy Elliot moment and we changed from rugby to kind of the performing arts and kind of being that storyteller that you are now, is there anything that you do differently in this whole journey?
Yes, there is, and this is hindsight. So I led with my art, and I would from the beginning, I would have implemented, or I would have, in the same way that I learned and asked everything and soaked up everything I could from any director or anyone that I admired in terms of my art. I would have liked to have done similar in terms of the business case like scenario of it, because it has to run as a business, and that's something I'm learning now when I'm working with people who work in commercial theatre. Going, like I've always wanted to do, subsidised tickets and tickets for those people who are striking and things like this, because it's important to serve your community. I think there's also a case of if you're the artist. Like power and money lies with buildings and institutions, whereas I've been subsidising my own career now for a long time because it's in the gaps between the projects.
Okay.
Whereas, and if you are from a working class background, like things like doing your taxes or cash flows, they're things that if someone doesn't show you them or give you those examples, you're like, what? And you just finding your way around in the dark. So actually implementing looking at it as not just wiping its mouth, it needs to make money. That I would have liked to have implemented that in earlier. That's the only thing that I would have done different, because everything else that we've done, and I stand on the shoulders of giants. Like we're an ensemble at Not Too Tame, and I've got two very good people, Andrew and Louise, who we've made the work with. It's that collaborative nature, that working class sense of ensemble has been there from day dot. But what we didn't have, what would have been great is having Alan Sugar to monetize things, or to while you're making the work, all those extra points of sale like merch or just things that where we could have reaped more out of the successes that we've had. But that's a learning curve as well. So yeah, in hindsight, I'd have had a business guru running alongside us, but. Yeah.
Well, I think that's nice because you focus on something that's not a characteristic of yourself. Does that make sense? Which a lot of people like to do when I ask something as thought-provoking as go back and kind of reevaluate your life. A lot of people try and focus on something specifically a characteristic of them, where you've broken the mould in that sense and been like, no, do something which will benefit so many others, as well as your company as well, which of course shows the kind of character you are, and
Oh, well, that's good.
and what you're trying to achieve with Not Too Tame as well. So I think that's a great advertisement in itself. You said about having the business guru, but I think you are selling Not Too Tame more and more, that you're talking about, even in this half an hour that we've had so far. You've sold Not Too Tame well enough to be like I'm interested in what you're doing next, kind of thing, which I think it's great audits to yourself, because of course that's how something should be sold. It shouldn't be, oh, here's a billboard, this is our upcoming show. It should be people genuinely hearing from the people that make it. Like I resonate a lot with, if I'm going to watch something, I'll resonate with wanting to watch that film or that show if I hear from the people that have actually lived and worked on the show. So like, say for example, like interviews, and like for example with Breast Off, you did the kind of, they came into the rehearsal room, didn't they, and they asked you questions like that. I get a feeling from that you're enjoying your work, which makes me think, well, if they're enjoying it, I might enjoy watching it.
Well, that's really interesting, because I always say when we're currently marketing our next show, and I always say with the marketing, intrigue.
Yeah.
People, like, just if you intrigue an audience, if they go, oh, what's that, or that looks in, they'll go.
Yeah.
Because intrigue is the greatest pull, and then you've got word of mouth and those things. But if you're right, you're absolutely right. If you look like any performer, if they look like they're enjoying the work, you're drawn to it. Yeah, interesting.
There you go. We're going to try and focus on what you deem as your biggest achievements and your defining moments now. So when you think through your span, it can be to do with anything. It can be to do with your actual career or just personally to you. What do you see as your kind of biggest achievement in your career high to date?
Interesting. I'd have to split it between two things. One was the first thing, and the most recent thing that's happened. Or one of the most recent things. So last week I was in rehearsals, and Louise, one of the co-directors, Not Too Tame, sent me a message going, "Have you seen this?" And I've just been nominated for a UK Best Director Theatre Award, which gets the ceremony's on the 8th of October now. And I was like, what? And because we're up there's only 3 people up there. It's myself and Matthew Dunstep from Midsummer Night's Dream at Shakespeare North Playhouse last year, and then there's Gary Hines from Druid, a Galway-based theatre company who I've watched and followed for many years, and then the RSC. So to have my name, some scruffy-necked lad from Warrington up there, it was a lot to take in. It's still a bit overwhelming, if I'm honest, but that is just that acknowledgement of the work we did, because Midsummer Night's Dream was the biggest thing Not Too Tame has done, and it was a massively working class project from beginning to end on a Shakespeare. And we got, there were 10,000 people saw it in Shakespeare North Playhouse in Prescott, and 11% of those audiences, so just over 1,000 people, had never been to the theatre before, ever, and they saw a Shakespeare. So that's something I'm proud of. But then the other thing is the very first thing we did, which was early doors. 9 years ago, selling out at Edinburgh Festival, and then getting picked up on guarantee to be toured around the UK, because that was me going, I'm not going to sit and wait for the phone to ring. I'm going to get a load of great artists together, people like Anjana Vasan, who's like on the front of Vogue last week, incredible artist from Singapore, and she's from West End, and David Many, who runs Open Door, a charity to increase access to professional arts training for people from low-income backgrounds, young people from low-income backgrounds, and that early doors was our flagship. And to get that, to have a signature piece that was about working class audiences, written by working class artists, and to sell out at Edinburgh and gave us an award. And if I'm really honest, I'm going to get emotional this week, but we did it with a lot of love, a lot of care, and the greatest sense of ensemble that you could ever imagine, and to to be selling out, stood shoulder to shoulder with your best mates up in Edinburgh. Bosh, come again. It was so good. So that's a big thing. That
I like that because, of course, you focused on kind of, I was in this, or I created this, and look at me, look at my work. You've kind of focused on, we've taken this piece of work, and we've, of course, touched so many people and got such a big audience. Or what I'm noticing with you, it's very audience-based and community-based, and kind of, it's very much like, I'll create this work, but you're hoping that you will get a lot of eyes on it, and hopefully a lot of people will enjoy it. And that's kind of how I see your kind of, I guess, mantra is kind of very much like, if I create this work, and say, as you said with the Shakespeare piece, so many people hadn't seen piece of theatre or anything like that. That's kind of where you're getting your joy, which I think is a nice thing, because a lot of people just focus on, I've got this many people in, I've sold it out, where you're focused on this many people have never seen this show. So you're very much community and working class, which shows throughout this, which I really like. It just shows that you're trying to not appear to a niche, but you're trying to appear to the masses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's sort of, it is, because I want to change the game, because it feels like theatre belongs, for too long, has belonged to the middle classes and the haves. And actually, for me, I've always said, if you've got a TV, you should go and see theatre. My issue is that I go and see a lot of theatre myself, and I go, nah, it's not good enough. But it's hard to say that. So I always think that, like everyone, if anyone's ever been to theatre, any theatre that moves you, and it's probably similar to a TV in a way. The Royal Family actually is the biggest thing I can think of off the top of my head. But something that is great and moves you and will stay with you, for me, has a holy trinity of three things. It's got to be socially relevant, it's got to be well crafted, and it's got to be entertaining. Now, so many shows that I see in the theatre, I'll go, that's really well made, sort of socially relevant, it's not that entertaining. There's only very few things out there. I went to watch something just last night, and it was great, and it was a spectacle. Did it move me? No. And I think theatre's got a responsibility to leave an audience pregnant with an emotion, to do something. Or, whether it's laugh, cry. I mean, the show that we're about to open here, I just think is devastatingly powerful. And it makes you really proud to be working class.
No, I like that. Of course, you've mentioned you like highs.
Yeah.
Is there...
You can ask me what me loads. There's loads of them.
No, what kind of do you think defines kind of your career? So if you can think of one thing that maybe you were going in a complete course on one road down, and it's kind of diverted and made you change kind of maybe your morals or how you are as an actor or director, is there anything that's defined you so massively it's kind of changed your course in where you're going?
I think, do you know what I've got to say? I always go back to this, and anyone who's heard me will bang on about it, but I was really fortunate when I left drama school. I was really fortunate to go into a job with a company called Cheek by Jowl, and they're a classical theatre company. Then we toured all around, like it was like a next step in education. Now, Cheek by Jowl they do almost like Tarantino versions of classical text. And the one we did was called "'Tis Pity She's a Whore," and we went. So I had 3 years being in and working with the directors, the two artistic directors. There's Declan Donlan and Nick. What's Nick's surname? Oh, it's really annoying me. I knew as soon as you go, what's their name? It's gone Nick. Nick. It'll come to me. But Declan is the director and Nick is the designer. And it was we had a 5-week rehearsal period, which is obviously like that doesn't happen. But on the first day of rehearsals, they sat down and said, "We don't know what this looks like. We don't know we don't know the set, we don't know the costume, we don't know what it is. We're going to find this together as a company." And their ethos and way of working and empowering of actors as artists and the collaborative approach. And working with, actually, the associate director was Owen Horsley, who's now massive. We did all the War of the Roses at the RSC. It was just, it fed so much into everything that I do with Not Too Tame. And actually, when you break what Not Too Tame does down, it's very similar to Cheek by Jowl in terms of classical essences, which is it has to be alive, as long and the charge in the space. So I always think, like, we don't do blackouts. It's like a Newton's cradle. You create this incredible big number at the beginning, and then one thing displaces the next. And for me, it's what I go back to all the time. Declan's book, The Actor and the Target, is massive. But you know, we toured that show for 3 years. I mean, we went to Australia, and I went to Kate Blanchett's house and worked with Kate Blanchett, mic drop. But I'm like, that was unreal. So going back to the rugby thing, I thought I'd never go to Australia when I gave up rugby, because rugby league's massive.
Yeah.
So when, again, this little working class lad from Warrington getting on a plane to go and work with Kate Blanchett in Australia, I was bawling. Honestly, I was really, it overwhelmed me. And I was like, this is unreal. But then we played in El Matadero in Madrid, which was an abattoir. So it was a theatre that used to be an abattoir. And when we played all of these incredible spaces, indoor, outdoor, and that relationship with space and different communities across the world, and ensemble really is the essence of what I do. I've sort of taken that.
The Bless is open every day from 12 p.m, serving a wide range of beers, ciders, real ales and spirits. Their kitchen also provides handmade pizzas, loaded nachos, chicken strips and ice cream from 5:50 to 10:30 Monday to Thursday, and 12 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The pub quiz is very popular with anyone that enjoys a good beer and a bit of a laugh with their mates. Taking place every Wednesday at 9 p.m, there's loads of prizes to be won, including £50 drinks vouchers for the winners and a bottle of wine for the best team name. Everyone's a winner. They also have a spacious function room available to hire that can hold up to 100 people. Wow, that's a lot. Perfect for birthday parties, work events, weddings and wakes. The Bless really comes to life at the weekends with their branded nights of Stone Love and Fully Loaded, where the DJs play alternative, indie and rock music spanning the generations until the early hours of 2 a.m. There really is something for everyone in what is arguably Derby's best pub.
And put it through a working class laser. And that's what I carve out the work with. But really, and Declan is still Nick Ormerod, I knew it was going to say. Declan Donald is still someone who I've gone, oh, that's what genius is. Because he the way that he looks at, and even though we come from very different backgrounds, we're both Irish at heart, but it's the humanity. So regardless if it's a play or Shakespeare, yes, the language is special, but it's the humanity of what's going on, like the human nature, and why, like, I always say that I'm an armchair psychologist, because I go, why do we do that? Why are you doing that? What is that? What's that about? And I'm fascinated by why human beings do what they do in certain situations. But working with Cheek by Jowl and travelling the world and getting envelopes of PDs to go and spend is probably the thing it's been the rudder to my Ferrari engine that just wants to go, go. Yeah, it brings it back to the work. So I'd say that's the scaffolding that I've built a lot of stuff on from Not Too Tame.
Nice. Of course, we've kind of dropped it in and sprinkled it in throughout. But of course, what are you currently working on? So you can mention Not Too Tame first and then go on to Derby Theatre. I'm happy for you to do that.
There's, well, actually, so after this, because once this is up, where I'm rewriting The Social, which was commissioned by Derby Can actually, and Derby Theatre, which is this year it's the 50th anniversary of Wigan Casino, the Northern Soul venue. And so actually what Derby commissioned originally, we've rewritten about a third of it to give it a working class Wigan heart for the casino.
Nice.
So that's the next thing with a Northern Soul dancer the girl who did the choreography, a girl called Sally Malloy, since then has become the world champion. So I'm like, you're back and you're in it, kid. And so that we're going to be doing that in November, December. But now we're just about to, we're sat in the foyer of Derby Theatre about to go into tech rehearsals for Brastoff, which I've got to say feels like a Shane Meadows, Jimmy McGovern version of it, because I don't know whether it's the time, I don't know whether it's 8 years since I've played this, and I've since had a kid, and I've since had some more life experiences, so I've got more to bring to the role, as has everyone else who's come back. But Brastoff has always been, I mean, Pete Postlethwaite, who played, one of the main roles in the film, is from Warrington, love him. But this version feels really like brutal, brutally honest, it'll sell out again, this, but what Sarah's done with it on such a scale, like you've got community, you've got these incredible young company and children, you've got the professional actors who are all playing their instruments, those that play, and like Kelvin, the MD, his musical director, has been phenomenal, and Derwent Brass, and we did our first run through the whole thing with everyone on Saturday, and I just thought, if this is what it's like when we're in the rehearsal room, I genuinely think we've got something very, very, very special on our hands. And I think the stories in it, again with the working class thing, they're really important stories. In a landscape where currently, you've got people using food banks, you've got communities that have been dissected and demoralised and abused by Tory governments. Community is whether we have it or we feel the loss of it, is massive, and I just think people are going to be exhausted in the greatest way when they come out of this and moved, and it's honestly, it's really special, this. So I've been telling everyone, I'm like, listen, if you've not got a ticket, you are going to regret this, because it's like it's going to sell out again. Apparently Friday's sold out, which is great. It's the first thing.
And I mean, I've seen for press night, it's pretty rammed. Literally, I tried to get a ticket, and now I don't usually choose the front row. Yeah. I'm literally A1, A2, because there was no other choice to get two together. So there's single ones scattered around, but yeah,
it's got to be so good. And honestly, one of the it's coming back. I don't know whether it's because I'm older or whether I do so much with ensemble and sense of community, but the company, like the new additions to the who, because some of the actors have been employed because they play those instruments, but they've come in, and the camaraderie with the company and the real sense of family. Something that theatre has to do very quickly. You've got to get in and form a family, and actually working with Gareth. So I directed Palace of Varieties here with Gareth, who played Dennis Skinner, who's now getting to play my dad as he comes up on the image. It's something that's very special, this, and this is, I've got to say, Brastoff is one of my, it's probably one of the biggest things that I've done as an artist, and it resonates massively, because my dad, before he was a rugby player, was a miner. He trained to do an O-level in mining, and I come from Newtonley Willows, which is where Parkside Colliery, one of the most profitable and biggest collieries in the UK, got, they're my people.
Yeah.
And it means a lot, and you see a lot of these towns and cities now that, because of that breaking down of the and taking away of skilled labouring jobs, just because Thatcher we wanted to have an arm wrestling. It's important. And my daughter, who's 6, she's like, "Daddy, what's a mine?" Right, okay, I'm going to take you up to Wakefield to the mining museum. But it's important that we keep telling those stories, because like lots of things, it's secular. We've got to keep we fight, we win, we lose, we fight. We just got to keep going.
So of course you've mentioned multiple times that you've of course done it before. So for people that have seen it before at Derby Theatre, is it completely different? Is it the same? What can they expect when coming to watch it this time?
Do you know what? I think so. It's the same thing. So those tropes of, you laugh, you cry, you'll have a pint, or you'll have a good night out. Like, it's all of those things, and you'll you'll be physically moved by the music because it vibrates in your chest and your soul, because Derwent Brass are just exceptional. The acting is, expect the same but better, or stronger, I would say. Better, stronger, because even by the actors, like if I'm honest, I played about 70% of the music last time, but now I'm playing it, and that informs what I do with the role and the way that you attack it, and it feels like the last time we did it was like a bed for us to build on, and it's like an ultra HD version. That's what this is. That if you liked it before, you're gonna love this, and you'll be thinking about it for weeks after, and I know you will. And even the strongest big Yorkshireman or Barbados. Anyway, if you're from Derby, if you're from this area, I don't care how tough you think you are, this will move you on lots of levels, and you'll laugh. It's funny. There are bits that are funny. Some things are supposed to happen, some things are not, but the kids are great. It's funny, it's good, it's laugh. You'll have a whole great night out in 2 hours.
Nice. Of course, we've not mentioned how long the run is when it's on. So
I know, I'm on it. I don't even know if long. So we open on Friday the 29th of September, and it runs till the 28th of October. Our matinees are Saturday and Thursday. I'm trying to think what else there is. Audio described, captioning, all of it. I mean, Derby's exceptional for accessibility. So there's signed performances. I think we've got a lot.
Sponsored by Dancing Duck.
Oh, is it?
I believe so. That's why.
Does that mean we get discount on bevies? Oh. Yes, mate.
Well, you've got the draft, haven't you? So yes. Press night, you'll be taking advantage of that.
It is. I mean, I should have mutton chops. I'm that much older soul, but I love an ale, and Dancing Duck are brilliant. A-up is my favourite tipple of choice at the moment. So
there we go. You're going to be coming up and getting A-ups, as we already have it on bottles. So there you go. I kind of wanted to ask you some quick fire questions, just of course to round up.
Yeah.
So of course you go into working man's clubs, pubs. So of course you will know of karaoke.
Oh yeah.
What's the go-to karaoke song for yourself?
I can't believe I'm going to admit this. So I would normally go sober, Van Morrison, Moondance. After 1 pint, I would go Sex Bomb Tom Jones.
But at least people can join in.
That's it. I think karaoke is brilliant. I always ask that. You know, when I'm doing interviews, I ask people like, "What's your karaoke song?"
I like asking because I mean, everyone has people that don't enjoy singing.
Yeah.
Like to do something everyone can get involved with. Depending, the more rogue shouts you go for, you know that you're going up there to entertain and blow the roof off everyone. Yeah. So no, I love that.
What's yours?
So, can you? I don't know. Do you watch football a lot?
Yeah, I watch a bit of football.
So remember the 2010 World Cup?
Yeah.
So Shakira did a song called Waka Waka.
Yeah, I know it.
That's my song, and I mean, I did it in Amsterdam, and it got questionable eyes from someone because I tried to even learn the Swahili bit. So when she breaks off into that down the way, like 2 minutes in, yeah, I do that as well. And like people were just looking at me.
I love that. That's commitment, though. Love it. I love that.
That's it. You've got to have a song and you've got to stick to it. So no matter where you are, and people are like, "Oh, go on, do karaoke." You've got to do it. You've got to go for it. If you just say no. People are not going to be invested in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get asked to do karaoke, you've got to go for it, and that's why I ask it. Of course, my next question is: you've got a chef, he can make you one meal and give you one drink. What are you asking for?
I'll bin the chef, and I'll get my grandma, who passed away when I was 10, to come back and make a hot pot with corned beef, short crust pastry and pickled red cabbage, please. Thank you very much.
What drink?
Drink. Alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Your choice, your preference.
I'm going stereotypical northerner here, but I'm going to go dandelion and burdock.
Nice. And then you can choose one person to join you for the meal. They can be dead, alive, anyone. You can choose who you're choosing to converse with over this meal.
That's good. That's a good question, that. I think if it's just... That's funny. In my head, I'm like, The first person that came to the top of my mind was Sofia Vergara. I'm like, yeah, Good. Yeah, Sofia Vergara. I think she'd be. Yeah, or that her or Oscar Wilde. Either one would be great company.
They get very different.
Yeah, they're very different about it.
Of course, the next question. So we've got a sponsor, that are like Pete's Wills, so they deal with like all wills and everything. So they wanted to put something in here and ask a question. So they wanted, what's the one thing on your bucket list that you hope to achieve, say, before you die? So the one thing that you think of, I want to achieve that before I die.
Olivier. Bosh.
Nice.
Done.
So,
Yeah, Olivier.
is there any activity like skydiving? Are you interested in anything like that as well?
Yeah, I did a bungee jump hungover once. It was the worst experience of my life. It was awful. But I would like to do a skydive. A skydive. I still need to. Do you know what? I need to run my that skydive is the one, I think.
Nice. And the last one, kind of, I think this you're going to give a brilliant answer to this.
No,
so if
no pressure.
No, I do. With how you've answered already, I think that you're going to hit the nail on the head with this. So, someone comes into Derby train station for the first time. You've been tasked with picking them up, and you're taking them to your gem of Derby. But it's got to be only one place. Where are you taking them to?
My first instinct is to say the place that when I first ever got to Derby, I saw across the road from Derby train station, which you'll know, which I'm not going to name the place up. You go, I'll take them there, but I won't take them there. Do you know what? Where would I take them? Who are they? Just anyone?
Anyone, just random.
I mean, obviously I would take them to Derby Theatre, but I would take them on the route to. I've got to say, there's I had the Exeter Arms. Dancing Duck will be happy with that. That's what they say. They sell lots of nice booze, but they go up in the cathedral. To go and sit in the cathedral in the heart of Derby, and whether you're religious or not, I just think it's just a beautiful building, and it's so peaceful, and the light coming through the stained glass windows it's beautiful.
There we go. And if to go at the moment, there's a massive moon or something.
Is there?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I saw it the other day.
All right.
So yeah, that's probably still there. Thank you for coming on and talking to, of course, Brastoff and yourself. Just to finish up, explain where people will be able to find you in the close and distant future.
Probably in a corner of a snug in a pub. No, so they can follow me at on all socials at Jimmy_Fairhurst and at Not Too Tame. I'm probably in a karaoke bar in Derby somewhere for the next couple of weeks.
There we go. No, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, that was great.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Peaking to Success podcast. If you enjoyed, please make sure you follow us on Spotify as well as Instagram, where you can see all the updates of who is coming up, as well as who has already been on the podcast, as well as Twitter, where there is information and interaction from me on there as well. Thank you.
Want to know what's happening within Derby's black community? Or perhaps you have a story of your own to share? Then look no further than Majatu, your one-stop source for local African and Caribbean news. With our digital news platform and quarterly print magazine, keep up to date on all of the latest in arts, entertainment, food, sports and more. Find us online at mojatu.com.